PK's official response to her divorce filing.
He's also asked the court specifically to deny Dorit's request for it.
But the lack of a prenuptial agreement, well, that definitely complicates things.
Right, no prenup. And we heard a bit more from attorney Ronald Richards. What did he add?
Anything earned or acquired after that date is usually considered separate property.
Initially, yeah, it sounded like an uncertain future for RHONY. But then Andy Cohen, he directly countered those claims on his Instagram.
There were some complexities behind the scenes, too.
Reports suggested some cast members were even hesitant to film with her towards the end.
Andy Cohen sounds really pumped about a new addition. Angela Oakley has made some pretty serious accusations against Porsha Williams. She also seemed really upset that none of the other women checked Porsha on the comments. Interestingly, Drew Sidora did admit Porsha crossed a line.
Okay.
Alexia Umansky criticizing Morgan Wade.
Yes, regarding Kyle and Maurizio's situation. Yeah, frustrated with what he saw as Kyle's lack of transparency about Morgan.
Scheana Shay has been talking about why she always feels the need to defend her mom, Teresa. Jesse Solomon teased a big announcement, said it surprised the whole cast. Lexi claims she has proof for her side and thinks Jesse is just trying to control the narrative now that he can't control her directly. Scheana Shay mentioned running into Rachel Leviss since all the legal stuff after Scandal. Why do you say publicly we're not cool when you text me stuff like this?
Okay, so there's been an update with Dorit Kemsley's divorce. PK has filed his response.
Yes, he has. And it looks like they're not exactly on the same page about, well, a few key things.
Right, like the kids, Jagger and Phoenix. Dorit asked for full custody, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
Full physical custody, that means where the kids live most of the time. And full legal means who makes the big decisions, schooling, healthcare, that sort of thing.
Okay, but PK, in his filing, he's asking for joint custody.
Okay, so that's difference number one. What about spousal support?
Well, that's another big one. Dorit requested it from PK, but PK is saying, nope, he doesn't want any spousal support himself, and he's asking the court to deny her request for it too.
Well, okay, so he wants that off the table completely. And legal fees.
Seems they might agree there, actually. Both are asking to pay their own attorney's fees and costs.
Okay, so maybe aiming for less financial entanglement, at least going forward.
It kind of looks that way, certainly from his perspective. And, like Dorit, he's citing irreconcilable differences as the reason.
So they agree the marriage is broken down.
Fundamentally, yes. But the lack of a prenuptial agreement, well, that definitely complicates things.
Right, no prenup. That means dividing assets acquired during the marriage could get sticky.
Exactly. It opens the door for more negotiation, potentially more disputes.
And we heard a bit more from attorney Ronald Richards. What did he add?
He basically confirmed PK's stance, no spousal support either way, each pays their own lawyers. But interestingly, he mentioned the actual date of separation is still up in the air.
Why is that so important?
Well, that date is crucial because it typically determines when marital assets stop accumulating. Anything earned or acquired after that date is usually considered separate property.
Gotcha. So PK wants a specific line drawn.
Seems so. Richards also noted PK is specifically asking that any projects he works on after the separation date, plus jewelry or gifts he gets, should be his alone.
Okay, so he's already thinking about future earnings and assets being kept separate.
Definitely signaling a move towards, clear financial independence post-split.
And just to recap the timeline, Dorit filed back on April 25th.
And that filing itself came literally the day after PK was photographed kissing the model, Scheana Wall.
Yeah, that timing certainly raised some eyebrows and fueled a lot of speculation.
It did. Though, legally speaking, the court's main focus will be on the grounds for divorce, dividing assets fairly, and sorting out the custody arrangement for the kids. The photos, they add drama, but might not be the core legal issue.
It's also worth remembering, wasn't there a joint statement from them earlier? Like last year?
Yes, back in May 2024, they put out a joint statement on Instagram saying they'd been facing struggles for a few years.
Right, they said they decided together to take time apart, sort of reevaluate things.
Exactly, and they really emphasized prioritizing their children through it all. They asked for support then.
So that statement painted a picture of them trying to work through things, maybe amicably separate, but now we're seeing the formal and potentially more contentious legal filings.
It often happens that way. The initial separation statement can be quite different from the realities of the legal divorce process later on.
So looking ahead, the big points seem to be child custody joint versus full, and this whole spousal support issue, especially since PK is firmly against it.
Absolutely. And without that prenup, figuring out how to divide everything they built up during the marriage could be a major part of this.
Plus, PK wanting to lock down his post-separation earnings and assets as his own.
Yeah, it suggests he wants a very clear financial cutoff. It really sets the stage for, well, potentially a complicated process ahead.
It definitely seems like there are some significant points of disagreement to resolve.
Okay, let's shift focus. The chatter around the Real Housewives of New York City. There were these whispers, right, about it potentially being on hold. What's the latest there?
Yeah, that buzz popped up. But what's interesting is how quickly those rumors were sort of addressed. Initially, yeah, it sounded like an uncertain future for RHONY. But then Andy Cohen, who's obviously pretty central,
right,
he directly countered those claims on his Instagram. He actually reshared a denial from a Variety editor.
Oh, okay.
And Bravo themselves also put out statements, basically saying, look, no final decisions have been made.
So it sounds like maybe the rumors got a bit ahead of reality.
Seems that way. While the initial reports definitely raised eyebrows, it looks like nothing's actually set in stone yet.
Right. So the pause button isn't necessarily being hit. But Us Weekly did have an insider suggesting the network and producers are actively trying to find a solution and considering a potential season 16. This insider also mentioned no contracts went out after season 15, the one with the all-new cast.
Yeah, that's a key detail.
Why do you think there's this hesitation after just one season with them?
Well, in reality TV, that audience connection is just crucial, right?
Definitely.
And the report indicates the viewers really struggled to embrace the new cast after that big 2022 reboot.
So lower ratings followed.
Lower ratings compared to the original cast, yeah. And that highlights this massive challenge. How do you refresh a show without losing the audience that loved the original? The insider suggested, without those familiar faces, it just felt like a different show and fans didn't quite connect.
So maybe the producers are now kind of scrambling, figuring out whether to stick with this new group or what.
Exactly. They're likely grappling with that now. Stick with a new direction or maybe explore other options entirely.
And it wasn't just about new faces, apparently. There were some complexities behind the scenes, too.
Seems like it.
We're hearing some women like Uba Hassan with Oliver Doxel and Jenna Lyons with Cass Bird kept their relationships pretty private on camera.
Which can be tricky for storytelling on these shows.
Right. And then there's Brynn Whitfield. She seemed like a hit at first, but then apparently ended up creating some dark and ugly dynamics.
Yeah. Reports suggested some cast members were even hesitant to film with her towards the end.
That kind of friction, that's got to make producing a compelling season really tough.
Oh, absolutely. You combine those production hurdles with a failure to really click with the audience.
Yeah.
That's a significant challenge.
Yeah.
This whole RHOY situation really brings up that big question. How do you balance fresh energy with, the core elements viewers expect?
It's a fine line.
It really is. Sometimes a complete overhaul, even with good intentions, can end up alienating the old fans without really grabbing new ones. Producers are probably weighing all that very carefully right now.
Okay, so while RHONY's future feels a bit up in the air, Andy Cohen sounds really pumped about a new addition, The Real Housewives of Rhode Island, RHORI.
Yeah, he seems very enthusiastic.
He called the cast incredible and very Italian. That's an interesting description.
It is. And what's particularly noteworthy is his emphasis on their pre-existing connections.
Right. He said they kind of know each other and overlap because Rhode Island's so small.
Exactly. Suggesting that built-in history will lead to really interesting connections. He seems to think RHORI could really surprise people.
That existing web of relationships.
Yeah.
That often makes for good TV, doesn't it? Instant drama potential.
For sure. It provides fertile ground for immediate organic conflict and storylines. Much more engaging, usually.
He even compared it to New Jersey, another franchise known for its strong Italian roots.
But he did differentiate it.
Yeah, pointing out Rhode Island's coastal vibe and saying the cast is even more Italian with deep families. And he also dropped that comment that RHORI does kind of remind you of early Jersey in a weird way.
Now that's a statement.
Considering how raw and intense early RHONJ was.
Yeah, that comparison is really telling. Those first seasons, they were all about very real, often intense family stuff, long-standing relationships.
Right.
If RHORI can capture that same kind of genuine connection and unfiltered drama, it really could resonate.
He also touched on background checks briefly. Mentioned how things have changed since RHONJ started.
Yeah, he noted that back then nobody had done anything illegal, implying the vetting process is maybe more thorough now. Likely reflects a greater awareness of potential controversies, trying to mitigate risks while still finding those compelling personalities.
Okay, let's shift focus. Atlanta. Things are definitely getting spicy there.
Oh, yeah.
Angela Oakley has made some pretty serious accusations against Porsha Williams after a recent RHOA episode.
What kind of accusations?
Alleging Porsha has been sleeping with people's husbands for sport.
Wow. Okay. That is direct and inflammatory.
Very. And it all apparently stems from that comment Porsha made in a prior episode suggesting she should f Charles Oakley.
Right. I remember that causing a stir.
Angela said she initially felt bad about it all, but then felt like divinely inspired to confront Porsha.
Divinely inspired.
And then things escalated when Britt Eady and Kelly Farrell sort of implied Angela was eavesdropping.
Which Angela denied.
Strongly denied, said her name was called. Drew Sidora actually backed her up, saying they didn't realize Angela's room was right there.
So conflicting accounts already.
And it wasn't just the Charles Oakley comment that got to Angela. She was also offended by remarks about her Chi-Town swag and how she spics.
Okay, so it felt like more of a personal attack on her character.
Exactly. She apparently interpreted Porsha smiling while saying the thing about Charles as, like, confirmation of this alleged pattern of behavior.
Got it. So Angela felt targeted, and maybe her whole persona was being questioned?
Seems like it. She also seemed really upset that none of the other women checked Porsha on the comments. Felt like their silence was basically enabling Porsha, and she lost respect for them because of it.
That makes sense. Perceiving silence as approval? That's a common source of conflict on these shows.
Interestingly, Drew Sidora did admit Porsha crossed a line.
Okay, so not everyone was silent.
But Porsha's defense, she said she was tipsy and they were just talking short about Angela.
The classic tipsy defense.
Right. And she denied knowing Angela could hear them after she went to bed. Shemaya Morton admitted they were laughing when P talked her trash, though.
Oof, not great.
And then Kelly Farrell just came right out and said, P needs to learn to stop trying to fuck everybody's husband.
Whoa, okay. That's blunt, especially coming from another cast member.
Super blunt. It really underscores how serious Angela's accusations are being taken, at least by some within the group.
Yeah, Kelly's comments suggest this could cause major fractures, and Porsha's tipsy excuse.
Okay, let's move over to Beverly Hills. There was a rumor going around about Alexia Umansky criticizing Morgan Wade.
Yes, regarding Kyle and Mauricio's situation.
Exactly. But it looks like that report was actually false.
Right, seems unfounded. Maybe started from some fake social media thing.
But what is interesting is the whole dynamic between Kyle, her daughters, and Morgan Wade, especially what came out at the RHOBH reunion.
Definitely.
Kyle talked about questioning her feelings for Morgan and having conversations with her daughters about it.
And the daughters were supportive.
She said they were very supportive, which, considering the separation from Mauricio, suggests a certain level of openness in the family.
It does. But then you have Andy Cohen.
Right, he seemed frustrated.
Yeah, frustrated with what he saw as Kyle's lack of transparency about Morgan.
Because Morgan filmed in season 13, but then Kyle didn't mention her this past season?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kyle cited Morgan's discomfort, but Andy made that key point about the music video.
Oh, yeah, where Kyle was Morgan's love interest.
Right. Andy said that contributed so mightily to a conversation that was already a runaway train.
Hard to argue with that. That video definitely fueled the speculation.
For sure.
Yeah.
And despite all this, Kyle and Morgan were just seen vacationing together in Europe.
So clearly still very connected.
Seems that way.
Okay, switching coasts again to New Jersey. Scheana Shay has been talking about why she always feels the need to defend her mom, Teresa.
Especially with those reports about the tax debt with Luis Royalist swirling.
Exactly.
So what's Gia saying?
She's been really clear. She will always defend her family. She talked about how, especially when her dad Joe was away, she felt like she had to be her mom's main support.
That makes sense. Stepping into that protector role at a young age.
Yeah, and she thinks that's shaped the sort of assertive way viewers sometimes see her on RHONJ.
Which she acknowledges, right? Being seen as getting involved in adult conversations.
Yes, she acknowledges that perception, but stresses it was always about defending her family, especially her mom. She reflected on how very real and difficult things were for them on the show. The legal stuff, Joe's deportation.
All playing out on camera.
Exactly. Which explains why she sometimes came across as serious and upset or agitated. It's a lot for anyone, let alone growing up with it publicly.
Absolutely. Growing up under that reality TV microscope during major family crises, it gives important context to her behavior over the years.
Totally. And now, with her new show, Next Gen NYC, coming up, and her podcast, Casual Chaos.
She's looking to show a different side.
Yeah, she said she wants to show a more fun, lighthearted side, distinct from her RHONJ persona. And she hopes to tour with the podcast, too.
Good for her.
I would say there was like a big announcement that we were all very surprised by.
Let's turn to Summer House. The reunion sounds like it had some drama. Jesse Solomon teased a big announcement.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Said it surprised the whole cast, but wouldn't say what it was.
Definitely builds anticipation. He also called the women seasoned reunion queens.
He did. Admitted he was a little nervous beforehand, given the circumstances.
Understandable.
But he said he was happy it's over and felt he got a decent amount off my chest.
Okay, so whatever the announcement was, sounds like it led to some significant talk during the taping.
Meanwhile, there's some off-screen drama involving Nick Viall.
From the Viall Files podcast.
Yeah, he accused Jesse of basically backing out of an interview, flaking on him.
While Nick was interviewing Lexi Wood, Jesse's ex from the show.
That's the one. Nick said Jesse had initially reached out about pitching something, agreed to do the podcast.
Yeah.
But then, as Jesse's drama with Lexi played out on Summer House, Nick wanted to talk about that.
And Jesse wasn't keen.
Nick claims there was a lot of back and forth, rescheduling, and then Jesse just flaked.
What was the reason given?
Allegedly, Jesse blamed Lexi's hurt feelings, saying he shouldn't talk about it because of that.
And what did Lexi say? She was right there when Nick said this.
Yeah, she expressed confusion, said she hadn't even spoken to Jesse.
So she wasn't buying his explanation.
Not at all. She questioned his sincerity, criticized another interview where she felt he implied she was lying about him accusing her of flirting with Wes Wilson.
Right, that was a whole thing on the show.
Lexi claims she has proof for her side and thinks Jesse is just trying to control the narrative now that he can't control her directly.
Ooh, strong words.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of unresolved tension there.
Definitely. Okay, finally, let's talk Vanderpump Rules. Scheana Shay mentioned running into Rachel Leviss twice since all the legal stuff after Scandal.
Any interaction?
Sounds minimal. First time was at the Grove around Christmas, just eye contact. Second time at Stagecoach last year, no contact at all.
Wow, just brief accidental run-ins.
Yeah.
Interesting, given their intense history.
Very. Scheana also tackled Tom Sandoval's claim that she, publicly disowned him but stayed friends privately.
Ah, yes. What was her take?
She was pretty clear, said, yeah, they text here and there, congrats on the Traitors or Masked Singer, checking about Tyler Henry.
Okay, so occasional, maybe professional courtesy type texts.
Exactly. But she stressed they do not hang out, don't get lunch, don't go to the gym, and he is definitely not invited to her daughter Summer's birthday.
Drawing a clear line there.
Very clear. She said they're not that level anymore. Tom's never even been to her house.
Mm-hmm.
She did mention texting him once to connect him with a friend directing a job he was up for.
So, still willing to offer a professional connection.
Yeah, but she said Tom actually confronted her about it later, why do you say publicly we're not cool when you text me stuff like this?
Oh, interesting. So Tom saw it differently.
Seems like it. But Scheana's explanation was basically, her public statements are accurate. They can have casual texts, but they aren't friends like they used to be.
Got it. Setting boundaries.
Yeah. And she ended by saying she still cares about Tom's well-being and her other former castmates, even ones who've done things wrong, wants them to be their best selves.
That sounds surprisingly mature, actually.
Right. Trying to navigate that tricky space between moving on and still having some basic consideration for people from her past.
It's a nuanced approach.
So what does this all mean for you, watching this ever-shifting landscape of reality TV? It certainly seems the drama is far from over in a lot of these franchises.
Never a dull moment. Wrong.
Never. For more behind-the-scenes insights and deep dives, be sure to subscribe to Realty TV and hit the bell icon if you don't want to miss out.
Good call.